You know that annoying feeling, athlete's foot, jock itch, maybe a stubborn yeast infection? Chances are you've dealt with one of these fungal foes at some point. And if you have, you've probably reached for some over-the-counter cream promising relief. Well, inside that tube is a super powerful, targeted ingredient that's been our frontline defense for decades. So, let's get into it. We're going to pull back the curtain on the science behind one of the most common fungus fighters you can buy. I mean, how does it know exactly what to attack? And how does it stop that relentless itching right in its tracks?
You've definitely seen a box just like this one in your local pharmacy. And the hero of our story is right there in the name, clotrimazole. It's the key active ingredient in huge brands you know, and it's exactly what we're going to break down today.
Okay, so what exactly is this stuff? Clotrimazole isn't some brand new, cutting-edge discovery. Nope. In fact, it's a trusted workhorse that's been absolutely essential to medicine for over half a century.
It was first cooked up in a lab way back in 1969, and since then, it's become so vital that it's now on the World Health Organization's list of essential medicines. And get this, just last year in the US alone, doctors wrote over 1 million prescriptions for it, and that doesn't even count all the over-the-counter sales.
And this list really shows you just how versatile it is. I mean, from skin infections like athlete's foot and ringworm, all the way to internal issues like yeast infections and even oral thrush, clotrimazole is the go-to for a whole range of common fungal problems.
All right, now for the really cool part. How does it actually beat the fungus? To get that, we first need to understand the enemy's biggest weakness.
So every single fungal cell is protected by something called a cell membrane. And the key ingredient holding that membrane together is a substance called ergosterol. The best way to think of it is like the mortar between bricks in a wall. Without that mortar, the whole wall is just weak and unstable.
This is where clotrimazole makes its move. It specifically targets and blocks the enzyme that makes ergosterol. It basically cuts off the fungus's supply of mortar. Without it, the fungal cell membrane gets all leaky and weak. The cell just can't hold itself together anymore, and it falls apart and dies. Simple as that.
And here is the molecule itself. You can see its really unique 3D shape. It's this precise structure that acts like a perfectly shaped key, designed to fit into and jam the lock, that specific fungal enzyme. It's such a targeted attack that it leaves our own human cells completely alone. Pretty clever, right?
So that's the science. But how does all this clever chemistry translate into the treatments you can actually find at the pharmacy? Well, because they can treat infections on the skin or inside the body, clotrimazole comes in a whole bunch of different forms. For skin issues, you'll find it as a cream or a solution. For something like oral thrush, it comes as a lozenge that just dissolves in your mouth. And for vaginal yeast infections, it's available as creams or these things called pessaries, which are just small, solid inserts.
You can really see here how the treatment plan changes based on the dose. So for example, a lower concentration cream might take a few days of use, but a single, super concentrated 500 milligram pessary can often knock out the entire infection in one go. It's all about getting the right dose to the right place.
But, treatment isn't always a one-size-fits-all deal. During pregnancy, for instance, the body just doesn't respond as quickly to the medication. So, to make up for that, doctors will often extend the treatment to 7 or even 14 days, just to be sure the infection is completely gone.
Okay, so we know it's effective, but is it safe? Well, generally, yes, but like any medication, there are a few things you should probably be aware of. When you put it on your skin, the most common side effects are usually pretty mild, localized reactions right where you applied it. Things like a bit of redness, maybe a stinging or itching feeling. Usually this stuff is temporary and just a sign that the medication is doing its job.
Now there are also a few really important warnings to know. The oils in the creams and pessaries can actually weaken latex. That means things like condoms and diaphragms could fail, so it's super important to use another form of contraception during treatment. And of course, you should never, ever use it in your eyes. And with the oral lozenges, doctors might need to keep an eye on your liver function.
For all of its amazing success, clotrimazole is now facing a growing problem. And it's a problem that affects so many of our most trusted medicines, resistance.
So how in the world do fungi fight back? Well, one of the main ways is by evolving these incredibly clever defense mechanisms. A key one is something called an efflux pump, which, as one source puts it, works like tiny pumps that push clotrimazole out of the fungal cells.
So the fungus essentially installs these tiny pumps on its surface to just push the drug right back out before it can do any damage. Other fungi get even smarter. They actually change the shape of the lock, that enzyme, so the drug key doesn't fit anymore.
And some even find a whole new way to make their mortar, creating a detour around the roadblock clotrimazole sets up.
And look, this isn't just a fascinating bit of biology. It has very real-world consequences. For patients with weakened immune systems, a resistant fungal infection can become incredibly serious, leading to treatments that just don't work anymore, right when they're needed most.
Which leaves us with a really critical question. Clotrimazole has been an amazing tool in our medical arsenal for over 50 years. But as these fungi keep evolving their defenses, you have to wonder, what's our next move in this constant battle between medicine and microbes?